Welcome to another edition of Business Success Interviews. My name is Heather Marquez, and I'm with Action Coach Mind Links. And today we are joined by Cory Kent of George's Local. Welcome.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about George's Local, because you're a relatively new restaurant here in the Cedar Valley.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a little over 5 months old, opened in late September. Love the downtown Cedar Falls area, and we were kind of poking around down here for any opportunities for a restaurant that kind of came up, and we saw this location, and in a couple spots that we looked at, this location was just jumped off the screen for sure. You know, you've got a corner spot, you had an open lot that was on Main Street, and just the opportunity to be able to do outdoor dining was probably the most attractive thing. And then to be able to dive into the building and just kind of learn some of the history of the space, and knowing that it had been just kind of sitting here as a kind of a storage warehouse of sorts for the last 15 years, give or take. And we just thought it had a story to tell, and it was just a great spot. And we kind of built the concept around the space and the building, and kind of what we thought may have been some needs or something that might be a little different or missing in the downtown Cedar Falls area, obviously in our opinion. And so George's was formed, and the name George's comes from the first actual hospitality restaurant on our location. A guy named by Louis George in the early 1900s had a restaurant called George's Cafe. So again, diving into that history, and that's kind of how we came up with the name.
That is awesome. So how long have you been officially open?
Yeah, so we opened September 28th of 2021. And so I think it's just a scotch over 5 months that we've been in action.
Okay. And this is not your first foray into being a restaurateur. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so essentially kind of after college in my early 20s, I got into a restaurant called Sluggers. It was a little sports bar and grill in Coralville. That was in the early 2000s, and worked for a lady named Faye Swift. She'd had the restaurant. It actually flooded in 2008 when Cedar Rapids at Iowa City area really got hit with the flood. And so it would have been 20 years that summer in 2008. So she had a ton of experience. I learned a lot from her. She was later became a business partner of mine with Pullman, along with her son Matthew. And so that's how I kind of got started. And it's kind of the restaurant business is addicting in a lot of ways. It's a high energy, fast paced. You're working with a lot of like social fun people. The people that have done it know it. You just, even when you try to get out of it, you're like, God, I just miss that little bit of rush of people coming in, and the busyness and just moving around. So that's kept me at it for 20 years, give or take. And so, but that's where I started. And then I have Pullman Bar and Diner, which is a little over 7 years old in downtown Iowa City. And then St. Bridge Tavern, which is about 5 years old, just around the corner from Pullman and also downtown Iowa City. So for me, two great concepts and a lot of synergy being located downtown, right close to each other. But again, this Cedar Falls area was really kind of pulling me back up this way, because I went to college here in the early 2000s. And so here we are.
So who is your ideal customer at George's Local?
Yeah, that's a great question. Back in the day when we would do restaurants, we didn't focus a lot on that. I think naturally you attracted certain people or crowds or families or whatever it was. And we didn't really hone on that. We just, if you were wanting a meal, we'll obviously take you. And that's still the case. But, when you come to marketing, or who are you trying to attract, I think naturally for us, where you get that 25 to 50-year-old range. I think you find that people have disposable income. They're the ones dining out more often. When you're younger, maybe you're still in school, you don't have a ton of money, or on a budget when you're in college like I was. And then as you get older, a lot of people are thinking about retirement, so they start to pull back the spending. So that really 25 to 50 group is the ones coming out, getting dinner, grabbing drinks, being a little more active in terms of restaurant in general and eating. So that's the crowd we tend to attract. And also the patio kind of attracts a certain crowd too. So you get the bicyclists, the runners, the active crowd who love to sit outdoors on a patio, have a cold beer after a long ride. So we get that crowd as well. But, you know, again, I'm happy to serve anybody who wants to come in for a hot meal and a cold beverage, but that's who we tend to see come to the restaurant.
So what is your specialty or your favorite dish that you serve?
Yeah, probably the George's burger. I mean, it's just a simple concept. You know, it's a special sauce, house pickles, American cheese, 2 thin patties, and a bun. But it just melts in your mouth. So I tell people, and the burger is kind of like, you know, in restaurants, you get judged by your clean restrooms and you get judged by certain things. The burger is one of those things that you get judged on. Burger is universal. So if you see something more unique on our menu, you're like, you know, I'm not ready for that yet. You can always get a burger, and that hits most people. And if they had that burger, like, you know what, I've had this thing 3 times now. It's absolutely delicious. Now they build this trust and comfort with you, and it's a relationship. And then the next time they come in, they might get a little more adventurous and try a more unique item that may be on our menu. So to me, that burger is one of the most important things that you can put on your menu that just makes people feel comfortable no matter what. They know they can get this, but it's kind of that bridge item that, you know, could lead to other more unique experiences as far as dining.
Awesome. So you talked a little bit about multiple restaurants that you own. And when I talk to business owners, time is obviously their most valuable commodity. Many business owners really struggle with the concept of time, and that's usually just owning one business. How do you manage your time between multiple business units, especially because they're geographically diverse?
Yeah, great question. I mean, we don't do it unless I wouldn't have come up here if we didn't have great people in the spaces down in Iowa City. And that even goes for, I wouldn't have done the second project if I didn't have great people at Pullman. So St. Birch wouldn't have happened if I didn't have good people in place at Pullman, and vice versa. So I think that's the number one thing for us is, you know, you always feel you're confident that you can find good people wherever you go. You know, I came into a new market up here, essentially new people, but didn't know a lot of people in the hospitality. I was hoping that we could attract some good people, which we have. But, you know, you can't do any of this unless you got a good team, good people around you, good partners, you know, and a community that's willing to support. But yeah, you know, Zoom obviously has helped out a lot, and, you know, email and phone calls. Those teams in Iowa City know how to get a hold of me if they ever need me. And it's still just a little over an hour away. So it's not, you know, not like I'm driving to Chicago or somewhere too far. But yeah, there are challenges, no doubt about it. I can't just jump in the car and be there in 10 minutes. But as long as you got those good people and you really empower them to run the restaurants like you would, that goes a long, long way.
So all that generally starts with hiring really well. And I've overheard a few of your hiring conversations. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how you hire. What are the things that you look for? What are the types of questions that you find really beneficial to dig into as you are trying to find these people that you can empower and really build a strong team with?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it depends on, you know, what job you're hiring for specifically in the restaurant. But, you know, I'm trying to find like-minded people. So I usually, when I do an interview, it's more of a conversation than it is like a series of questions. Sometimes those interviews, they go different directions depending on how the conversation's going. You know, you do want some of the general questions like, you know, how much do you want to work? What is your availability like? Are you flexible? What's your experience level? You definitely want to get those. I usually knock those out of the way right away so that I understand kind of what I'm, you know, working with, because if our job is very flexible, you're working nights and weekends, there's just a lot of adaptability to what our profession is. So you're really looking for that adaptive person. But the biggest thing is we're hiring based on culture, so hard work, integrity, attitude, hospitality driven, those are some of the key characteristics we're looking for in individuals. And I try to see if I can pull those things out of each person as I'm chatting with them, and then really gain their interest, because I'm looking for hospitality full-time professionals. Now, in a college town, as we are here in Cedar Falls, like, you're going to get some college help, but those I try to supplement and fill the gaps based off of a core group that are all here full-time, and this is our career. Because those are the people I'm priority, 1, 2, or 3, and a full-time employee or a part-time employee, I might be priority 5, 6, 7. So you just want those people that are like, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm passionate about. So for me, it's just really finding that person that fits. Honestly, it's probably based on my personality, my energy that I'm bringing, because I want to surround myself with those like-minded individuals. And hopefully you get a good group and you get that core group down, and then everybody else kind of feeds off of that core group.
So where have you found your best source of leads for hiring has been?
My people. Once you start hiring good people, they attract good people. You have to, find. So when I was coming up here, I put a little post out on Facebook on Pullman and St. Birch's pages and said, hey, got a new project we're working on up here. And so my chef, Jorge, he was the first one to reach out. And so we did a series of Zooms, because this is in the middle of COVID. We found a time for him to actually come down and sit down face to face, and he cooked for me and one of my other business partners down there. So we knew he could cook, and just getting to talk to him, he's a veteran, so he was in the military. So he just had a lot of good core principles, and just having conversations with him, I'm like, okay, me and Jorge, we can jive. And so that was the start. We're the nucleus. And then you just going through him, hey, who's up here? Who's good at this? Who can we attract that are like us, that we can bring in here that has that same mindset? And so we just slowly but surely, started getting that core group together. And then it just kind of organically happened. And those people attracted, hey, I know this person. I think you should sit down and chat with them. I think they fit what we're doing here. And so that's kind of how we've plotted our way through these first 5 months.
Awesome. And as we're sort of building into the spring and summer season, you're hiring again, right?
Yep.
To build your crew. So when you're looking for your ideal candidate, you named off some of those qualities that you're looking for, but what else would somebody need to know about working at George's Local?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that we started in Iowa City is we started offering some benefits. So PTO, we pay half of health insurance for full-time employees. So when I was coming up in the restaurant biz, I didn't even think about those things as an employee. As restaurants, we never even thought about offering those things as employers. But over the last 5 to 10 years, when I'm sitting here telling you I'm trying to attract full-time hospitality-driven people that want to do this for a living, you need those things to offer to your staff if they're going to work for you full-time. They want health insurance, they want PTO, they want these things. And, we're going to keep building towards more. Hopefully eventually we figure out how do we set these guys up with 401ks, or how do we help as a employer give them resources as young adults or adults that you need retirement and such. So I think that's been a big game changer. We really talk a lot about our culture. This is something we did in Iowa City that I thought was really strong. Is in our business, we work a lot. We work a lot of long days, 10, 12-hour days, especially on the weekends. we're all around each other a lot. We're all family, but if we're going to be here a lot, I also want it to be a positive environment. I don't want you to feel like, man, I got to go to work today. You know what? We don't always want to work, but if we do, why don't we're amongst friends or family? You enjoy your time here. You're learning some skills. So I would say culture and just a couple of those benefits things are by far been really helpful. But I would hang our hat on our work culture as our number one attractor. And I think, when other staff are seeing what we're doing, see how happy the staff is when they're working and they're coming in for lunch or, they're working somewhere else, like, man, I'd love to be a part of that energy. I think that's where we really start to attract some good employees for sure.
Awesome. I love the focus on culture. When an organization sets out their core values and hires to that, it makes it so much easier to retain team. And hiring is a huge expense for any organization. So retention is so important, but only retaining the people that really do fit the culture. So I'm sure that as you have been on this long journey, you have received some really awesome advice from somebody in the past. What's the best advice that you've ever received that's benefited you the most as you've been on this journey of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, that's a great question. Most of them come from Faye, my first boss, but it's said a couple different ways. But one thing, and I think it applies to a lot of stuff, especially when you're an entrepreneur, but not preparing is preparing to fail. So I can microcosm that down to just a single shift in the restaurant, but also I can blow that up to if you're not preparing yourself to own a business or run a business or manage a business, it's going to be a tough journey for you. So I think for me, preparation in what we do every day, how I plan whatever the future holds, how I plan out, our week, our month, our year here at George's. You got to understand all the downtown events that are happening when home football games are happening, homecoming, those things that you have to just really think about. We have patio season, so we've been preparing for, a good month on what that looks like, doing schedules and practicing and like, hey, business is going to pick up. Our capacity essentially doubles when that patio opens up. So that's probably the biggest one Faye's ever. She used to say it all the time, when we would get caught by surprise with a busy day or whatever it was, she's like, well, how did you not see this coming? Why weren't you prepared for it? And so I try not to have any excuses for those things anymore and try to prepare our teams to say, hey, don't be surprised if we get busy. That's what we expect, right? So I would say that's probably the biggest influence for sure.
Awesome. And as a seasoned small business owner now, what advice would you give to another entrepreneur or business owner?
Yeah, I would say, I think the biggest thing is, a lot of times when we're a small business owner, we have a skill, right? Like I'm good at restaurants, or you're good at making cupcakes, or you're good at doing one or two things, right? So just because you're good at that skill doesn't always prepare you for management, doesn't always prepare you for entrepreneurship. There's three kind of levels that, E-Myth is a really good book that I would suggest to people, the technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur. And when you're in your own business, it's really tough sometimes to take that 10-foot view of what's happening in your business, because if you're in it all the time, working in it, you can't work on it, you can't grow it, you can't figure out how to make it better because you're just so overwhelmed with the day-to-day stuff. So I would say, number one, read that book because it gives you great perspective. But two, just figure out if you're going to start this journey and own your own spot, you do have to live it, you do have to be in it. But also you have to find those ways to like take a step back and look at it from afar to figure out, okay, what are we doing well? What could be better? What do we need to change? What position or hire could I make that could, take us to the next level? Whatever those things are, really evaluate and talk to other business owners. I would look in your community and say like, hey, who's doing it? Who's doing it well? Who's being successful, and be like, hey, what is your secret? What are you doing that's working for you? And I think that's one thing about being a small business owner is it is a community. It is a fraternity of sorts, and we go through the same challenges together in a lot of ways. So I think, for me, I'm talking to restaurant people in town and Iowa City all the time about, obviously the last several years with COVID, with staffing, what is the future going to hold for us? All those with your Iowa Restaurant Association. So you find those resources and have those conversations because you're not the only one going through these issues. And I think that's definitely important for people to understand. Like, you don't have to do it alone, but you do have to sometimes swallow some pride and go reach out to people and figure out, to get some help and get some good advice.
That is awesome advice. The E-Myth is such a great book. I agree. I highly recommend everybody reading it because there is such a difference between being a subject matter expert and a manager and an entrepreneur. It all looks different, and you have to be able to move through those phases and also add the resources into your business that maybe you aren't good with. So if you're not the bookkeeper of all time, add a bookkeeper. If you're not the, scheduler or the person behind the scenes who loves all the details, add that person in and find those people that really are going to supplement what you're trying to do. So tell us, if somebody wants to either come eat at George's Local or wants to apply for a job at George's Local, how do they get a hold of you? Where do they find you?
Yeah, great question. So reservation wise, so we take reservations. You can get on our Facebook page, on our website, and find our reservation tab, find it there. We use Resi, which is really great. Another resource that we didn't use heck even 5 years ago from a reservation standpoint, just technology is really advanced in that area. So you can just sign up online, which is awesome. And then just to get a hold of us in general, our phone number is 319-260-2280. We're happy to answer any questions. But then our info@georgeslocal.com email is a great email to get a hold of us for, maybe you've got a large party inquiry or an event or something that you want to contact us about. That's a great resource to get a hold of us too. We're active in Facebook and Instagram. So those two platforms, we're, monitoring those messaging platforms all the time as well. So a lot of ways to get a hold of us, and we're pretty responsive almost immediately if you do get a hold of us, which is great by our team.
And where's the location, the address of the restaurant?
Yeah, 108 East 4th Street in downtown Cedar Falls. So we're just on the corner of 4th Street and Main. Great location. I mean, we love being on Main Street. And again, just to have a building on Main and to have a corner location was really great. But we're happy to be in the downtown area for sure. But if you come down Main, you can't miss us.
Awesome. Anything else that you feel like it's important for those watching this interview to know or for us to talk about?
Yeah, I think, I'll be the first to admit, in my younger years, for sure, stubborn, strong-willed, which I think a lot of entrepreneurs can say, because we wouldn't do what we're doing if we didn't have that. But always ask for help. Even my best server, best bartender on a given shift, who usually never needs a hand at any one moment, could need help. And so I think that's the biggest advice I would give is swallow your pride sometimes, reach out, talk to people. But, if you're opening your own business, you obviously are good at or you love whatever it is you're doing. Just give it your whole heart, give it your whole energy, and good things will come from it. So that's what I would say. Just keep learning, keep growing, keep talking to folks, and you just keep getting better and better.
Very wise words. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you for joining us today. We will put all of the contact details in the information below the video. So I invite you to go visit George's Local and even just comment on the video of what were your nuggets. There were a lot of great takeaways and lessons shared in this interview. So Cory, thanks so much for joining us. And again, please check out George's Local.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.